and you will walk out with a listing agreement no matter whatever commission you charge them.
So the big question is, what are the top agents doing to absolutely crush it in real estate, grow their teams, and add more transactions year over year while so many struggle? If you ever thought about this, you're not alone. No one has been able to get the answers until now.
We spent the last few years helping agents sell billions in real estate, rubbing shoulders with top producers, which got us thinking, how can we expose more people to these insights to help raise the standard in the whole real estate industry? We then realized that we could help bridge the gap by getting the secrets from the best of the best so that you can succeed. My name is Andrew Dunn.
And my name is Peter Michael. Welcome to Elite Agent Secrets.
So speaking of organic, I know one of our topics is basically growing your SOI organically for all the new agents that are just starting out, and maybe what the stuff that you're doing now that does require a little bit of investment. What does that look like? Like, what does that mean, growing your business organically?
So I always try to think outside the box. For example, if I'm going to start farming neighborhoods, I'll say, how do I reach the most important people in that neighborhood? Now, if it has an HOA, you actually can go on like Sunbiz and look up who the board members are in that neighborhood. So instead of, and I do kind of everything, but so I'll mail to the 1,000 homes in that neighborhood, but I also make sure that the 12 board members or 11 board members are getting something from me on a more personal basis. You know, obviously before COVID, I would ask them to have coffee and get to know them. It's a little different world these days, but yes, you try to become, you try to get next to the most important people or the most influential people in those neighborhoods. Yeah. And the value of word of mouth or referrals is, it's priceless. No matter, if you're doing a good job, you'll grow your business anyway. But you got to have more at bats. You got to have more chances than the average agent. That's it.
Interesting. So you're basically, what you're saying is, I'm investing into that relationship. I'm finding who they are, and by purpose, I am getting close to them in a way where it's still genuine. You're looking to get involved in that community in some shape, way, or form, or seeing even how you can just build that relationship.
Yeah, we sponsor events. We ask, is anything I can do for you guys? Not monetary, but just to be around them. They're always a little hesitant to invite an outsider inside their neighborhood. So whatever we can do to maybe we supply notebooks for an event or whatever it is, and it could have the branding, could not have the branding. Just the fact that they're thinking of us during that event is very powerful.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the farming is, I think, it's stuff some people do. It's definitely more of I'd say it's like an older school, say, tactic where maybe now social media does it on steroids, right? In a way, but then I think there is a solid argument to be made, and this is something that we see in day out, is there is obviously just certain people who don't use social media. Like they just don't, or they're not looking at it, you're not hitting them. So like, which is the best strategy? Well, all of them, right? Like do them both, right? Why pigeonhole yourself to like, no, I'm just going to do social media ads to get clients, or I'm just going to do mailers to get clients, or I'm just going to cold call. Because like, I like cold calling for one very good reason, where it's like, I know I can get directly in touch with that person. Like that if that's their number, it's like, I can call them and I'm going to speak to John, right? So you pick up the phone, I'm getting on with John, right? So then now it's just a matter of like, can I actually, convince him that this is a good deal, right? Can I do that? So I like that from that regard, where it's almost infinite scalability. But then, some people, like you're saying about farming, social media is another strategy. I think both of them, something that I like to talk about, and it comes up over and over again, is like both of these are leverage. They're both forms of leverage. Farming with, say, mailers and sphere of influence, using events, using social media, things like this. These are all ways of leveraging yourself, your time, your brand to get yourself out there. So you're not having to go around and shake hands with every single person and stay kind of top of mind, right?
Yep, but let me chime in that one handshake is worth probably 1,000 phone calls, though. People don't realize that you become real to them once you've met them,
right?
And the more you meet them, if you've met them 6 or 7 times, now it's almost like they can't forget you. It's the same thing, with billboards or branding or whatever. But that, for example, some of the agents will be like, I don't want to go show that property. It's a waste of time. These buyers aren't serious.
Right.
How about when you run into 2 of the neighbors, checking their mail when you go in the neighborhood and you got your mag on your car and your shirt on, that you can hand the card out. That's more valuable than the actual showing, which is never a waste of time because you don't know what's going to turn into. So it's always just they're just thinking too small. Like there is nothing that's a waste of time.
Do it all and find what fits for you as well and for the market, right? I'm sure with certain markets, I guess property prices, like say, for example, luxury might be different from, a more of an average median home price, right? With tactics that would work to get in touch with the owners.
Yeah, I mean, you got to network with that. I mean, the best market to work in when people are choosing, well, who doesn't want to sell $1 million homes? If you're not shaking hands with them on a regular basis, if you can't get into that circle somehow, maybe you'll get into the circle when you do your first deal and they introduce you. Paul got me the best deal. You got to meet my real estate agent. Until you can break into that circle, into those parties, then you should be going to the parties that you're invited to on an everyday basis.
Yeah. Paul, do you still focus on the $300,000 price point? What does that look like as you've gained experience? Obviously, Network Saperstein has become a household name, and we'll talk about marketing branding in just a little bit. But do you run a specific type of price point? Do you focus on a specific type of price point when it comes to your deals?
So I don't look at it as price point because I also don't look at the customers as a dollar amount. If I did, I don't know that my business would be successful. So I would give the same treatment to a $60,000 condo as a $2 million listing. Well, first of all, the $60,000 condo is definitely going to sell. The $2 million might not sell. So you're definitely going to get a paycheck. So, and when you start, valuing the relationships versus the commission amount, my average sale price is low for as many deals I do. It's only $200,000. When I first shifted to a listing agent, I thought, let's go after the low hanging fruit, which is, amazing customer service. And then organically, it just, became a great referral source because they weren't used to getting customer service at that price point. So it really just kind of happened by accident.
Break down for us, what does amazing customer service look like, feel like why weren't those people in that price point being serviced? Because that's a very, very important point for everybody that's listening, because I think that's where most people snooze. Everyone's trying to sell the $1 million property until they get one and fumble fuck their way through, or essentially lose the deal and lose the commission, right? So what does that customer service look like? Because you're doing over 50, 60 million a year now.
Yeah. So I came up with I don't know that I created it, but like more running. So again, I'm 100% listing side. So everything I can do is very repeatable. So I came up with like a concierge service then based on demographics that you're working in and the vendors that you have at your disposal. I was able to come up with, and I kind of concentrate in the senior market, which don't discount the senior market, especially if you're in a retirement area. 50% of all real estate sales in where we're from are 55 and over. So, I said, let me go after the low hanging fruit. Let me go after the seniors that I click with anyway. And let me see what I can do to make their life easier. So, and that's the concierge part of it. We offer free cleaning, we offer free boxes, we offer a lady to help them pack. We have a vendor list that we refer to them. So it's almost like, they've been thinking about moving for a year. They haven't called me because they're scared to death. They don't know what to do for the first step. So after we meet, and you met with Pete, I don't think I've taken your listing appointment yet, but you've, right?
But I'm going to hold you to it because I had a listing appointment with Fiona. We were in and out in 15 minutes. So.
Yeah, it's a little different style. I'm a little more of a schmoozer, but so by the time we're there for 1 hour, they have zero fear left in that transaction. So like we were talking before about, and that's why the money part is almost the least important thing, because if you connect with the client, the money will come. May not come today, may not come tomorrow, but you will have abundance of business if you're not looking at them as a dollar sign.
See, like, I think the biggest struggle is, like, for everybody that's listening, is getting that point across that you just said, right? Because everyone is trying to chase that next deal, trying to get that commission. They may or may not have a lot of money stacked up. So if you're a veteran in the business, it's a little bit different. Your business is not a roller coaster up and down. But if you can stabilize it and you can see that long-term vision and stop looking at people as just straight up walking around commission checks, that's when the magic really starts turning and starts, coming into fruition. Because then you can, from what you're saying, is you can really focus on serving them at the highest level, right? And when we sat down, that's the first thing that you said to me. It's like, find out what they need, find out how you can fill that need, and then just walk them through it step by step. It's not rocket science. If they need X, find X. Okay, if they need an inspector, help them find an inspector. It's almost like this concierge type of level of service without being in $1 million price point. And those people will send you a lot more referrals as well, because of the amazing experience that they've had. So you're really going after experiences.
That's what it's all about. I mean, any business you're in, they're going to say, I hear a lot of people say it now, they're not going to remember what the house sold for. They're not going to remember how long it took. They remember, did I have a good experience with Paul or did I have a bad experience? And I'll tell you, the last few days of that transaction is really all they're going to remember. You could hit the ball out of the park, and then the title company ends up taking them one extra day to send them their money. The transaction was a nightmare to them.
Yeah.
That pain point, which was the money point, something went wrong.
It's interesting that you bring this up, because we sat down for lunch a couple of days ago, and I shared with you that the transaction was delayed. It was mayhem. But the buyers walked into that property, and there was the seller's stuff everywhere. So what did I do? I rolled up in my little gym shorts, my high socks. I got sneakers and a toolbox in my trunk. Started carrying stuff out. And they literally texted me the next day saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much. I know you didn't have to do this. I know I didn't have to do this. I didn't even have to show up. I didn't even have to return their phone calls after the transaction closed." But I took that, that customer service from what you're sharing, or I tried taking it really just kind of to the next level. Because if they walked into that house and there was stuff there and I wasn't there, the odds are that's the last thing they would have remembered about how that transaction went. Right?
It would, in their mind, it would have been, Pete got his check, he's out.
Yeah.
And that's really, and if you looked up like the what is the definition of real estate agent, I don't know that people actually know what part of the role they play in the transaction. And I don't know that they're willing to go the extra mile.
Interesting. So then how did you go primarily to being 100% listing agent, other than with time and intent?
Well, it was scary because you think your whole career that you survived off the buyer leads, that it's a little scary to give them up. But, if you figure out the amount of time that it takes you on the listing side versus the buyer side, it probably takes you 10 times as long On the buyer side, so if I have the time to do more prospecting and the relationships, you have eventually you have to take the jump. But I would say once you organically got to maybe 50-50 in your business, maybe it's worth trying it. But if you're running your business on 80%, 90% buyers, obviously you can't give up your whole business to try to make it on the listing side.
So is it possible for a brand new agent to walk in and predominantly become a listing agent out of the gate?
Sure. I mean, yeah, but they got to be willing to make cold calls. They got to be willing to take rejection. They got to have somebody showing them what's the right way to do it. So if they're in the right system, I mean, if they're working for a top listing agent and maybe they're working the deals together until they get their feet wet, yeah, they could do it. But could they do it on their own without any support or mentorship? I don't know, because they're going to fail so many times because they're competing against. So if you look at the big listing agents, like even in our market, like the listing agents control the market, the big listing agents.
Especially right now.
Yeah, especially right now. So you're competing with, you might know somebody from the neighborhood, but they looked up 2 other people on Google. They sold 112 homes last year. They got 76 reviews on Zillow. All the information's out there now. I mean, you can't even, not that I would lie to anybody anyway, but what's the last house you sold in this neighborhood, Pete? It's a tough question to answer if you haven't even sold a house, let alone in your neighborhood. So a lot of time, and that's the other thing too. Like these agents that are like picking up that niche market. I mean, yes, farming is an old school tactic, but it's now they become the mayor of that neighborhood. So they've taken an old school tactic and they're doubling down on, and they're running their whole business only on their neighborhood. Now, this used to be done by a lot of part-time agents that would just socialize in that neighborhood, and they were known as the it agent there. Now you got these mega agents coming in and marketing to these neighborhoods, even if they don't live there. So they're trying to, take away from the old school brokers neighborhood that they had wrapped up for the last 25 years. And you're seeing a big shift in that.
So let's talk about that. Farming and direct mailers. I know that's something that you do a lot of, and that's working really, really well for you. What is the strategy? What does that look like? Like, how are you picking your neighborhoods? I think maybe that's a good place to start. And what do you think?
So in Florida, it's pretty easy. There's actually a website that actually gives us the number of units. It gives us the turnover rate. It gives us the average price. You could probably pull it up in whatever MLS you're using. And then we're kind of looking for, depending what your budget is. I mean, we get the mailers as cheap as, you can do EDDM, which is as cheap as like 40 or 50 cents a piece mail. It's not first class. So they dropped into each mailbox. If we go first class, we get it for about 60 cents a piece mail, which is like a 6x11. Most postcards, if you look at them, are turned horizontally. We turn them vertically so they actually appear bigger. I'd say the most important thing on the postcard is the message, and it's not what Pete or Andrew think looks good, or not what speaks to you. It's what speaks to your actual client, the demographics of the client that you're working in, and you can't overthink it. Like the perfect postcard that never gets in the mail has zero chance of making the phone ring. The postcard that they remember after the 6th time they've seen it, that was professionally done, is a lot more powerful. And don't change the message. Consistency, just like in the real estate business, consistency is key. We have clients that have actually they're holding every time I send a postcard, they actually save it in the drawer because there's something valuable in there if and when they're going to sell.
Interesting. So you're saying is like, don't switch it up on them. Send it 4, 5, 6 times. I heard you say 6. Mm-hmm. Same message, same postcard. Is there like an interval? Like you're sending them out every so often?
The marketing companies will tell you do once a month. Once you've established your brand, I've switched it to every 2 months. And it's not the same exact postcard. There's different data. So I've found, especially in a hot real estate market, with the sellers, if you can put in their hand what are the latest sales, they'll keep it. They'll say, "Oh, Johnny's down the street sold it for $465,000."
Yeah.
So there's some kind of valuable information that's on that postcard that they actually hold on to. And they refer back to them. Tell me more about this sale. What did the inside look like? And listen to the feedback from the customer. So like I used to get phone calls that they would say, Paul, I don't understand why you don't put the price of the house on the postcard. And I'm saying to myself, well, geez, if I would have put the price of the house on the postcard, you probably wouldn't have called me today.
Yeah, 100%.
But then I'm thinking, well, that's the stubbornness. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. But if I'm giving them what they want, they will call. So even making that little adjustment, the guy gave me a clue. Hey, it's more valuable if you would send out the prices that these houses sold. So instead of getting one pissed off customer that called and asked for the prices, now I'm getting people that are calling and say, hey, my neighbor sold for $430,000. When can you come over? No. So right. It's not what you think. It's more what the customer value.
100%. I mean, with what we've done with online marketing, it's the exact same message. It's like, don't switch up what works. Okay, just keep doing it over and over again. The market's big enough that you can keep rolling it out. Also, your opinion doesn't matter. Like, go off data, get some market feedback and roll with that, right? So it's exactly the same stuff. And I think it's interesting, your observation obviously is about like the pricing. So I've been a part of a bunch of transactions throughout my life over the last couple of decades, and it's such an interesting thing where, like, when you do go to list your home, or I don't know, I'm not sure if it's an ego thing, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but for example, we about a year ago, I was living down south with my girlfriend, and the house was up for sale, and it was looking at being about $1 million, give or take. It was like in that region, but it was because we're in a pretty unique area. It was very affluent, and it was hard to base the price because there wasn't really anything else to base it off. So like they'd actually bought that home. Her parents had bought that home something like 30 or 40 years ago for like 120 grand. It was like nothing. And basically the area had just like skyrocketed in value. And they had a paddock where they had all their horses attached to the house. So they had half an acre plus just on the side of the house in this like real prime location. And they were like, well, now almost the land is worth more than the land and the house on the other part, because now you've just got this real estate that you can build on it. And the first thing we were doing was like, well, we've got to find over the last kind of 20 years what's sold around here and try and get a price point where we feel like it's a fair market value. But it's damn hard. But when we found out prices that were, 1.2 down the road, 1.4 there, it's like this nice little ego boost. And it's nice to know. Do you know what I mean? Like, these are good things that you put in your back pocket, considering when they'd first thought about it, they were like, maybe it's like 600 grand. Like, I saw something a while ago, you know what I mean? But it was like, nothing to really gauge it off at all. And when we went to buy, the very first thing we did, the house next door sold for the price. They were asking, I think, 350, 370, something like that. It was a downsize. And yet the house like next door sold for 330, like 2 months prior. And it's like, well, hang on, how the fuck are you justifying 50 grand more for, like, this isn't like 2 years, 5 years apart. This is, like I said, a year and a bit ago. But I think it's also like an ego thing, right? Like, people want to know if the house down the street sold for this. It's like, maybe if I want to sell it, it'd be pretty cool to sell it for $500,000, 500 grand, 700 grand, whatever it is, if they've got kind of an opportunity that comes up, right? Which is, I think, where having mailers going out, being top of mind, kind of being there, maybe is a good thing, right? Having that physical thing where it's like, yeah, there was that guy that sent us about that house down the street. Yeah. Where is it in the drawer?
They also assume that you do all the sales that are on the mailer. We're just giving a market report. But
Nice,
the buyer assumes that everything that's on there, or the seller assumes everything is on there is what we've done. We're actually just giving them data.
Yeah.
Now, if you becoming household name, the odds are that you sold quite a few of the properties in the neighborhood. But when you actually have the phone ring, what does that process look like? Do you immediately get in a car, go to the house? Do you qualify these people? Because your time is precious. I know you're very driven on the customer service side, but sometimes I know you can't make appointments. I know you don't rush over to see the listing, but what does that look like? When that inbound call comes in, what are you trying to figure out, know before you actually go in to that listing appointment?
So I'll try to establish a relationship on that phone call. And the first thing that most people ask them, they'll say, hey, I got your postcard. I was thinking about selling my house. Most agents would say, all right, what's your address? When can I come over? And then if you actually think of what the brain, what they're thinking is like, oh my God, I just gave my address to a complete stranger. I don't even know who they are. So they start panicking. So I'll ask them, say, tell me a little more about your house. What upgrades have you done? Why did you pick that particular house? What made it special for you? What are the selling features? And then casually near the end of the conversation, once I kind of feel their guard going down, I'll ask them, I can't wait to see your house. What is your address, by the way? So it's just nonchalant near the end of the conversation. So it doesn't feel so salesy, if that's the right word. And again, I'm never too busy to meet anybody face to face. Even if they tell me, I'm not selling for 2 years, you're wasting your time coming over. No, I understand that. I do want to kind of see what we're dealing with. When can I stop by? Maybe we'll stop by next week. Doesn't have to be today. And you should be able to tell somebody's urgency. If somebody needs you there at 3:00 today, they're either irrational or there's something wrong. You think it's a slam dunk because you got a call, you spend $1,000 marketing. Somebody says, come over and sell my house today. I say, well, it doesn't work that way. Well, maybe they've been thinking about it for a year and they decide that today's the day, but usually it's some kind of red flag. If I say, well, can I come over tomorrow at 12? No, I need somebody today. There's something wrong. Yeah. So you don't have to jump when they say jump, but I do want that face-to-face appointment. Even if they told me over the phone, I just want a price. These are all defense mechanisms that they're doing because they don't want to be sold. And then when you go in there and have an appointment and you don't sell them anything, they're like, wait a minute, don't you have something to sell me? And before you know it, you've established a relationship and you get the listing agreement signed. I don't know if I do it in 15 minutes like Fiona. Yeah, but it's...
I can appreciate her style, but I think I'm more... Well, maybe it's because I'm inexperienced from that sense. Is I love how straight she is, and she just makes it so easy and pleasant to watch and go through. I was literally... she told me last time she walked out in less than 5 or 10 minutes. I was like, how the hell are you doing that? But I'm like you. I'm more of like the schmoozer. And maybe it's because of my inexperience, but I would love to just bang out listing presentations, get paperwork signed, and walk in and out in 15 minutes. But I know you stick around for a little bit longer.
Yeah, usually
develop more of a relationship.
There's probably a personality difference between me and Fiona anyway, but there's a reason I do that. If you go in there and you go out there in 15 minutes, what you want to call it, seller remorse, whatever you want to call it, they don't know you as a person. They know you as a salesman or saleswoman that walked in there for 15 minutes. They walked out of there. They got to report back to their kids or their parents and say, I'm selling the house. Well, who'd you sign with? I don't know. Some lady, she was here for 10 minutes. Wait a minute. And she's charging you 7% commission? Something doesn't seem right. So you do want to you got to either establish a relationship on that first appointment, or you're going to establish it sometime during the relationship where the relationship is going to go downhill. So I'd rather start off on the right foot and give them an extra 30 minutes so they knew who Paul is as a person, married, 3 kids, the whole 9 yards, instead of Paul as the salesman, which we're not.
The way I think about this, though, right, is it's styles for different people, right? But Pete, you know, we were speaking, I think we've spoken about this a little bit today as well, like off air. It's like you want to follow a well-worn path, right? There's nothing, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, which a lot of people do. And listen, if you're a bit more of a schmoozer, Paul's number 64 in the fucking country. So, you know, you can get to number 65 at least with the strategy. So if it works for number 64, it's going to work for number 65 down. We don't know if it works for 63 unless Paul gets there, and then we know.
But the other thing people don't realize, the value of that, of the marketing and the branding, it's not that I'm better in person than anybody else. I'm just in more doors. So if you know, we're spending money to get in the front door and it's an inbound call, your success rate is going to be, you know, exponentially higher anyway. So you really just, it's almost like it's a different, I don't have to convince them to use me as a real estate agent. I almost have to not screw up or not drop the ball when I'm there. So it's really a totally different mentality. And that's why I tell like all the agents I go on appointments with, it's a listening appointment. It's not a listing appointment. It's a listening appointment. Just go in there and listen to what they have to say, listen to their wants and needs, and make a friend, and you will walk out with a listing agreement no matter whatever commission you charge. The commission's not the most important thing to them. Trusting you is the most important thing.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. Now, before you go, we're giving access to a private training we did where we revealed the top 3 niches to get listings today completely for free. So if you want access, you can go and download that training at eliteagentsecrets.com. We're regularly releasing new trainings, guides, and cheat sheets, so make sure to head over to eliteagentsecrets.com and sign up so you don't miss out.